So, hello there, and welcome back to another Night of the Movies podcast. I'm Spike Knight, and in these podcasts, I love talking all things movies and TV, and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, I'm reviewing F1 the movie. So, let's get into it, shall we? F1 the movie is his new film all about, you guessed it, Formula 1 racing. And I'll be upfront with you, I have no interest in Formula 1 racing at all. I have tried to watch it and I just find it instantly boring. It's not for me. If you love it, that's great. I'm super jealous because it's one of those things that, I don't know why, I kind of want to like, but I just don't. So when I heard that this film was coming out and this film was being made, I had very little interest in it. Then the trailers came out and the trailers got me more interested. I wouldn't say the trailers got me, very excited or anything like that, but the trailers looked good. They made the film like it was well shot. I like the actors involved, whether it was Brad Pitt, Kerry Condon, Javier Bardem. I liked the actors I saw in the trailer for this film, and I did think it looked okay. Not great. I wasn't one of those people online who were falling over themselves praising the trailers for this film, but I thought it looked like it could be a fun watch. So I went to the cinema earlier today to watch this film with a spring in my step, hoping for a good, fun summer blockbuster that takes my mind off the day I'm having, that is thoroughly entertaining, keeps me hooked, keeps me engaged, and puts a smile on my face and makes me feel uplifted as the best sort of movies like this, underdog movies about people who go from nothing to everything. I was hoping this was going to be one of those movies like, say, Le Mans 66, which came out in 2019, was, Le Mans 66 was a racing movie. It's also called 4v Ferrari in America. That was a racing movie that really caught me off guard, and I loved that film. And I was hoping that with this movie, I would get a similar experience as I got watching Le Mans 66 in the cinema in 2019. So I went into the film early today with a lot of hope. And after coming back from the cinema, I am happy to say that I really enjoyed this film. It's not without its problems. There's stuff like, I wish there was more character development. My computer's trying to speak to me there. I wish there was more character development. I wish there was more substance. And at times the film feels like it's editing a little too much. It feels like it's almost made for the sort of Gen Z crowd, which I'm kind of part of, which is saddening to say. But anyway, it feels like it's made for that sort of crowd who are obsessed with TikTok, has to keep editing a lot throughout it to keep people engaged. And there were parts of the film that I felt could have been done better. We could have focused more on Brad Pitt's character a bit more. Like, the film touches on his relationship with his father but doesn't really explore, and I thought that could have been an interesting avenue to explore. And yeah, there were issues with the film that I could go into if I want to. Issues that I could go into in a lot more detail. But the thing is, I was watching the film and I was thoroughly entertained by it. And that's kind of what I wanted from this film. That's kind of all I wanted. I wanted to have a good time in the cinema and watch a blockbuster that had me engaged from start to finish. And you know what this film did? The film opens with this sequence where Whole Lot of Love by Led Zeppelin, which is a brilliant song. What a whole lot of love. Dun, 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 dun. Such a good riff on that song, by the way. Anyway, that's another topic for another day. The movie started with that song and I was thinking, okay, now you've got me engaged. And then it has this fantastic opening sequence that I was watching in the cinema, and I was watching this in it's like Odeon's equivalent of IMAX. I know some Odeons have IMAXs, but the Odeon I usually go to doesn't have an IMAX. It has something called iSense, if people know what that is. And I went there, and it basically, the movie's a lot louder than if you watch it in your average cinema. And the sound was booming from the speakers, and the visuals were grabbing you, and I was sat, quite close to the cinema, because my cinema was, it was, I like sitting close to the cinema, I'll be honest. I was about to say my cinema was pretty full. No, I'll be lying if I said that. No, I just like sitting kind of close to the cinema when I go to an iSense screening, because it's kind of like IMAX, so it's kind of not at the same time. But again, going back into what I was saying, I was sat close to the cinema, I was sat close to the screen, should I say, I was sat close to the screen, and the speakers, the music, and the sound was all booming, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm just so into this. And that engagement didn't go away for the next 2 hours and a half, because this is a long film, and, it sounds easy to do, but there are plenty of 2.5 hour movies which do not sustain my engagement. There are plenty of 2.5 hour films when I'm getting to like the halfway point, I'm thinking, okay, how long has this film got left? But I never really felt that with this film. I mean, you can see where the film's going from a mile away, but you can't help but get, you can't help but kind of get invested in it all and get swept up by it all, and just you're rooting for our central characters. I think it helps that the performances in the film are all, well, they're all just a joy to watch. Brad Pitt has this relaxed but compelling nature to his performance, where you're watching him and you're like, yeah, I can see why people be annoyed by you, but I enjoy watching you. Damson Idris is great. He's got this cheeky sort of nature to his performance, which I really enjoy. Kay Condon has this sweetness to her performance. And Javier Bardem seems like he's having the time of his life in this role. He feels like he's always, in his performance, just in his facial expressions, like the little nuance in his facial expressions, it feels like he's always got something up his sleeve. And Javier Bardem plays that so well, and he does have something up his sleeve. It's Brad Pitt's character. They have a relationship with the film that is quite fun to watch, for lack of a better phrase. So yeah, I really enjoyed this film. I came away from it, and I came away from this film and I was like, that was a proper summer blockbuster, not without its flaws, but it's one of those summer blockbusters which just, you can watch in a cinema and you feel like you've got your money's worth. That's what I felt like it was. Some people have been comparing it to Top Gun Maverick. I understand why. This film is directed by the same person who directed Top Gun Maverick, Joseph Kosinski, and you can see that it's from the same director. And I'm going to say something kind of controversial here. Well, it might be controversial, it might not be, but I'm going to say it anyway because it is my opinion. I prefer this over Top Gun Maverick. I don't dislike Top Gun Maverick. I think it's a fun movie, but it didn't blow me away like it blew so many people away. What was it, when it came out a couple of years ago now? And I had a better time watching this in the cinema than I had with Top Gun Maverick. I felt that this was a better cinematic experience. Maybe because I watched it in a different kind of cinema where my experience felt like it was enhanced. But yeah, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just because I prefer racing movies as well, because there's racing movies that I have seen, whether it's like Le Mans 66, which I mentioned earlier in this review, or Rush, the Ron Howard film, which I think is so good. That is probably still my favourite racing movie, but there's something about those films that is just, I can't help but if the driving's done well, I am kind of just taken by it all. And that's the thing about this film. I don't know if the actors were actually driving. I've heard that they were. I don't know if they actually did Formula 1 racing while shooting this movie. But the important thing is, it feels like they did Formula 1 racing. It feels like our main actors in the film that are doing all the racing, Brad Pitt and Damson Idris, it feels like them two are actually racing in these cars throughout the film. And that sounds like a small thing, but it's not. It's actually the biggest thing in this film, because if you didn't believe that, then the rest of the film would not work one bit. But I believed in the race car driving. I believed in what was going on. I was rooting for our central characters, and the film made me feel uplifted. I came out of the cinema with a spring in my step. One last thing, it's got a great soundtrack full of loads of great needle drops. I will say, I wish The Chain by Fleetwood Mac is in there. I'm not an F1 person at all, but you kind of have to live under a rock to not know that The Chain by Fleetwood Mac is used whenever F1 is, on TV or something like that. It's always used when F1 is on TV. At least it feels like it's always used. And I do wish it was used in this film. It might have been used, I don't know, a little bit at one point, but I would have preferred to hear the full song. But, the soundtrack's still great nonetheless. And the score by Hans Zimmer, Hans Zimmer, you know what you're coming for with the Hans Zimmer score. I'm not the biggest fan of Hans Zimmer. I don't really listen to his scores outside of the movies he scores, but I love how a Hans Zimmer score feels when you're watching the film, and when it's done well, when it feels like Hans Zimmer's really putting all these effort into the score of the film. You can tell, and Hans Zimmer's score for this movie makes it all the more an experience to watch in the cinema, and that's what it really is in the end. It's an experience to watch in the cinema, this film. I don't know if you're an F1... I don't know if F1 fans are going to like this film, because I'm not an F1 fan, but what I will say is, as somebody who isn't an F1 fan, I enjoyed this movie, and I enjoyed it a lot more than I was expecting to. And again, a lot of people compared it to Top Gun Maverick. I preferred it over Top Gun Maverick. I thought all the performances were just lovely to watch, and the whole film, it's shot in a way that you just can't help but get engaged in it. Again, not without its problems, and it's not going to be one of my films of the year come the end of the year, but it is probably one of the best films that I'm going to see this summer. You know? It's definitely worthy of that summer blockbuster title, if you will. And so, all in all, I'm going to say that F1 the movie, I'm going to say that it's a... I almost did the sound of an F1 car then. No, I'm going to do the one... I'm going to give this film I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. Listen, I had a whale of a time watching this at the cinema, but it has its problems, which is why I really can't give it an 8 out of 10. And I didn't love it, if I'm being completely honest. It wasn't one of those summer blockbusters which I'm going to return to time and time and time again. But it is one of those summer blockbusters where you watch it and you're just like, yeah, you know, you could be chewing down on popcorn as this film goes on, and you feel like you've got your money's worth. It's not one of those summer blockbusters that you're going to walk out the cinema feeling like, well, you know what, I just wasted 2.5 hours to 3 hours of my summer. No, this is, if you go to the cinema to watch a film this summer and you choose to watch this film, I feel like your time's going to be well spent. And that's what you want from a summer blockbuster. You want to get those summer feels. You want to come out of the film going, yeah, that was awesome. And I can imagine people doing that. And in my opinion, that's not a bad thing, because that is what I thought coming out of the cinema earlier today. I probably should have said this earlier on the review, but that's what I thought coming out of the cinema earlier today. I thought that was awesome. I was like, yeah, that was awesome. And that's never a bad thing when you come out of the film thinking that about... That's never a bad thing when you come out of the cinema thinking that about a movie you've just watched. And so, all in all, as what he said, and I was going to say once more in this podcast today, F1 the movie is a 7.5 out of 10 from me. Anyway, guys, that's it for today's podcast. If you have seen F1 the movie, please let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for watching or listening to this podcast. And if you haven't yet, please do click down below and like and subscribe on this podcast, and look forward to many more podcasts and many more videos coming very, very soon on this channel. As I've already said, thank you so much for watching or listening to this podcast, and I will see you guys again soon, but bye for now. Bye!